Midsummer is usually very quiet time in Russia. Not too many news. A lot of Russians take vacations, but actually most Russians take vacations and go someplace south. But not this year. In 2025, there are so many news coming out every single day, even in midsummer. I find this fascinating. It is, in my eyes, is an indicator that Russia is undergoing a tremendous political process. I call it tremors. It's a pre-runner, a forerunner to countries reformatting or big change. So for this week, I have quite a few crazy news, and they're really crazy. And the biggest ones are the visit of U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to the Kremlin, and discussion with Putin, and change that Russia is undergoing right now towards more authoritarian state, and of course, a huge blow to Russian economy. India stops buying Russian oil. Howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Fridays. I give you crazy news update straight out of the mad circus that Russia has become. But first things first, there is no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. And the news, I call them crazy news from Russia, the news of Russia that matter and that you will not find in any mainstream media. Well, now straight to the news. And every single Friday, every update of crazy news, I start with positive news. I think it's time to think about changing this Friday news update, was crazy news, to positive news. How do you like that? The positive news update from Russia. All positive. Well, at least some positive in the beginning. And this time I start with the positive news too. Russian economy is declining? Well, you know what? That's not a reason for some Russians to live well, to earn money. Lots of money. In Russia, it's all about the money. Chi-chi-ching, da-da-da, sorry. I can't sing, but I try sometimes. It's trying to put a little bit of humor and sarcasm into the live streams. Otherwise, the news are so disturbing that I die of sorrow. Anyway, a resident of Moscow, Russia's capital, is selling a McFlurry ice cream dessert from McDonald's. This news is odd. Well, McDonald's has been closed in Russia for 3.5 years now. What's even more odd is the price. Cool 1 million rubles or $12,500 for one 3.5-year-old McFlurry. The dessert, purchased in 2022 during McDonald's last days in late February and early March, has been stored in a freezer for more than 3.5 years. Check this out. Now this guy is just, telling us how it is. He's McFlurry. It is McFlurry. In Russian, it says McFlurry, And by the way, I didn't like food at McDonald's. But one of the few things I actually bought at McDonald's was McFlurry. I liked it. Ice cream, with chocolate and M&Ms and so forth. So if you happen to find yourself in Russia these days, in Moscow, and you carve original McFlurry, not the Tasty Periods ones, that's the new Russian owners, that's how they call in McDonald's these days, Tasty Period. So if you don't want tasty periods, McFlurry, then you know where to get it. You have to shell out $12,500 for it. The next piece of news is mysterious. A mysterious event took place in Yekaterinburg, a very large city in the Urals, in the east of Russia. The locals called it the secret wedding of the century. Well, some residents called it the feast in time of plague. The special guest at the wedding was brought all the way from America, a rap performer named Tyga. I hope I pronounced his name is right. Tyga. He performed at the wedding in Russia, and no one knows whose wedding that was. And he performed for a fee of $800,000. Here's the guy singing, and there's no sound, because if I turn on the sound, then of course I get hit by copyright claim from YouTube, But I assure you, this Tyga, his voice, and he's performing in Russia, Yekaterinburg. Quite a few guests, as you see, and nice cars. The guests pull in nice cars, and some in taxi cabs, probably servants, Ferraris, Rolls Royces, and all of that. And see, that church was closed off for everyone at the wedding. Local reporters inform that the payment for the performance of Tyga was supposedly transferred in cryptocurrency to him, so no one at the customs would have any questions. And perhaps the real reason no one in the United States in the tax revenue service would not have any questions. Again, I'm not claiming that. That's what I heard from the local reporters. Someone wants to check it? Go ahead, be my guest. In addition to the American rapper, a few hardcore Russian propaganda characters were seen at the wedding. Tyga, nice company you had in Yekaterinburg. Did you even know where you were going and whose wedding you were performing at? Oh boy. Another piece of news is also good. No. Great news. There will be fewer divorces in Russia, or at least fewer single parenting, The thing is, divorces are terrible. I went through a divorce myself, and there's no joke. It was horrible, painful experience. I still have trauma, and I divorced 20 years ago, horrible. I don't wish anyone to go through divorce, and to everyone who is going or has gone through divorce, I send my love and prayers. No jokes, right? So that's trauma for the rest of your life. Of course, Russian state must step in and care for the good citizens. Russian state cannot afford citizens to have trauma in their lives. No. Russian senators have submitted an amendment to the Family Code of Russian Federation. It's a set of laws called the Family Code. It regulates family relations. So they sent an amendment of this code to the parliament. The idea of this amendment is to oblige courts, federal courts, to establish the procedure of mandatory joint parenting in case of divorce. According to this amendment, it will be impossible to refuse to raise a child for fathers. And the explanation given is nothing short of brilliant. Not brilliant. I always say that those folks in the Russian government, they have brilliant minds, and there's no sarcasm there, but they have unfortunately rotten hearts. But their minds are brilliant. So now the explanation is this. Fathers in the families are usually responsible for formation of such traditional values in children as patriotism, citizenship, serviceship to the motherland, and fathers also bear responsibility for their children's fate. Wait a second. don't be too hard on Russian senators. I think there's still a chance for Russian fathers, for Russian divorcing fathers. Most likely, what the senators are doing right now, they're just taking the first step because they're very resourceful, them good Russian smart senators, Most likely, the next step, the next amendment of the same family code will be for those who don't want joint parenthood. They will be able to buy their way out. For example, a get-out license or ticket. You see, all will be happy. The fathers who don't want to participate in parenting their children for some reason, and the state. The fathers will buy their way out, and the state will, state will make some extra money. All good. Oh, Russia. The land of the through the looking glass. More good news. Another piece of news is the good news. Russia is to become cleaner. Well, Russian people, really. Russian parliament, that good parliament, called on Russians to abandon the tradition of getting tattoos. The Senator Oleg Matvey, I think his name is not Matvey, his name is Oleg Matveychev, something like that. Well, and the Senator, Mr. Oleg, described body tattoos as disgusting fashion and noted that it is difficult for a person with a tattoo to occupy high position in the government, in business, or in civil service. The Senator Svetlana Butskaya, another good senator, added that young people with tattoos give impression that they have served 15 years term in prison. And she suggested limiting the sale of tattoo equipment. Of course, what is the best way to make Russian people cleaner? To ban selling tattoo equipment. That's perfect. Good solution. Those brilliant minds of Russian government. Absolutely love them. Anyway, human right oppression, anyone? No, of course not. Don't be harsh on Russian senators. Again, please don't. They're good guys, brilliant minds. The brilliant minds, rotten hearts again, but brilliant minds. Of course, that's not it. Banning Russian companies buying tattoo equipment and Russians banning Russians getting tattoos. Anyway, of course, that's not it. It's just Russians who would still want to have a tattoo. You see, they would need to get a permission. From who? Obviously, from the state. There is no such body of government that regulates tattooing right now, but it's a good reason to create one. Most likely, in the future, the next step will be some kind of amendment of another law that bans things like sales of tattoo equipment, perhaps regulates getting tattoos and things like that. But the step after that will be some kind of a state commission on regulating safety of citizens' bodies and maintaining high moral values of the Russian world will be created. It will employ thousands of highly paid professional bureaucrats who will be issuing permissions for tattoos. Oh, for a fee, of course. Hey, how about an idea for the state from me, free of charge? Right now, the state should divide tattoos into two categories. First category, highly moral tattoos, like glory to Putin, Russian world rules. Vodka is our drink. Those high-value tattoos. And the state should charge a certain fee. And the second category, immoral tattoos, like dolphins or whales or flowers or portraits of people or hearts. The in-value stuff, the low moral value tattoos, they would be much more expensive to make. You'd have to pay a lot more. How about that for an idea? Oh, Russia, the land of through the looking glass. And I don't mean it in a good way. Actually, the next piece of news is, believe it or not, folks, I told you it's a great day of news today, Friday, crazy news update. The next news is also good news. Russians will be fit and healthy soon. And yes, state will control, state will take care of that. The state is going to control what Russians eat and how much they eat. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm sorry. I'm not making this up. I'm not. As Russian senators, all you have to do, if you want to have like a comedy routine, all you have to do is just to look what the Russian senators say. Go to the official website of Russian Senate, Russian Parliament. So this, please forgive me. Senator Kashuhina called for the introduction of a balanced nutrition program in Russia. The member of the upper chamber's Committee on Social Policy, you see, a member of the Committee on Social Policy is talking about food. That spells trouble for the Russian state, don't you think so? But anyway, the member of the Committee on Social Policy believes that children and adolescents, together with their parents, adults, should follow the same rules and form the right eating habits. I agree. What a noble cause. So Russian people stay fit and, healthy. Of course, they don't have any drugs left now. And the doctors there's such a huge shortage. Of course, they must be healthy. I mean, there's no way around it because there's no one to help them. Or actually, shouldn't say no one, very few, much fewer doctors than before to help them and much fewer drugs. Well, anyway, I agree. What a noble cause. At a time when food in the country is rampantly becoming more expensive, potatoes are becoming a delicacy. The state is going to regulate food prices and introduce uniform nutrition rules. This is the highest level of cynicism, or what? Oh, I wonder how the state will actually be controlling what Russians eat. Well, the only way I can think of, if you have anything else, perhaps any other idea, let me know in the comments. But I think the only way possible now is when you eat, you would have to take a photo of your plate and send it to the special number or the special email to the KGB. 3 times a day, every time you eat. So they double check, making sure that you eat the specific diet, regulated by the state. So why not? Skip a meal, get a fine. Skip 2 meals, get prison time. Good Russian government cares for its citizens so much. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I'm very sorry that I won't be able to follow this nutritional rules and regulations. I'm not in Russia, but I'm sorry. I feel so much safer for the Russian citizens now, Good. You're not gonna believe, but the next news is also good news. The previous one was about staying physically thin. Well, I'm sorry, not thin, fit. And this news is about staying mentally fit. Gleb Nikitin, the governor of Nizhny Novgorod province, publicly said that internet interruptions in the region should be perceived by people as the ultimate good, as a health improving procedure. I'm not going to say, I'm just going to let you watch and the good governor speak and listen to what he has to say. I wanted to address the guests of our city, the residents, the tourists, and treated the lack of internet with understanding, to perceive it as a wellness procedure, detox. Of course, you don't have any access to mobile internet or Wi-Fi, said the head of the region, speaking to the local representatives of Legislative Assembly. Detox. We have internet, he says, but only Wi-Fi, only to certain people. But you treat lack of internet as digital detox. Nikitin explained that disconnections themselves are needed for fighting drones. However, the citizens have already noticed that disabling mobile internet does not protect against drone attacks. For example, in Izhevsk, where the internet, that's where they make AK-47, by the way, the internet was jammed for a long time. It's been jammed. The residents of Izhevsk do not have internet, mobile internet, because there's such a high density of military plants, right? So no internet, but recently a drone hit the factory, killing 3 people. Who needs such details? Russian people. Do what you are told to do by your officials, by the governor. He tells you, take it and treat it as wellness procedure. Detox. Well, do the detox. Stay healthy. Eat less. Eat what the government tells you. Be fit. Be healthy. Be mentally stable. Detox yourself of everything. I like the idea of detoxing. You know. Well, I'm sorry. I have internet here in Uzbekistan. I'm not going to be able to detox much. But you Russian people, you go ahead and detox as much as you are made to detox by the Russian state. Now we are waiting on the authorities to start commenting on other management issues in kind of in the same spirit, kind of making the same statements, only of different areas. For example, the agricultural crisis in the south of Russia that is going on right now, it's full blown. It might be presented as a reason for medical fasting. It kind of goes with, staying fit and healthy, but it's like a step further. Oh, there's no food? It's good. Medical fasting. The longer you fast, the more detox, the more bad stuff you take out of yourself. Okay, so fast. The reduction of the civilian aircraft fleet in Russia might be presented as the development of athletic walking. You can't fly. Hey, you know what? From Moscow to Rostov, it's only 650 miles. You can make it in, 3 weeks walking easily. Imagine how healthy you become. Divorces, tattoos, food rationing, shortages, whatever, internet detox. Now, don't you see a trend developing here? And I just quoted you the officials, the senators and the governors. It's just the Russian state knows much better what's good for the people. The people, what do they know? What's good for themselves? Oh, come on. They might eat too much potatoes. That's not good for you. Well, so many carbs in potatoes. Or they might watch internet, surf internet, look at different media sources. They gonna imagine how mentally unstable they can be. They, God forbid, they read the foreign news made by the enemies just to destabilize Russia. So, Russian state knows better. Russian people, just do what you're told to do. I'm not sure you're going to be all right, but, let's try. The next good news comes from the head of Russia's space agency, Roscosmos. Russians were first in space. Russians achieved a lot. The achievements were based, and I'm trying to be fair here, achievements were based on technology that Germans developed. And then that technology was split in two. One part went to the USA, another part went to the USSR. But I give it to Russians. They developed very good space program. And they were first in space, first men in space, Sputnik, first spacewalk, and things like that. So now Russian space agency is not doing that well. It's basically doesn't launch any rockets, space rockets. Some Russians are saying that it's been basically ruined, but what do they know? Now, the head of Russia's space agency Roscosmos, Dmitry Bakanov, said that he had reached a historical agreement with the head of NASA, the American space agency Sean Duffy, on the extension of operation of the International Space Station until 2028. Historic stuff. This guy Bakanov, he's a very interesting character. Dmitry Rogozin, the guy who is credited with ruining Roscosmos completely, he was fired in 2022, and Vladimir Putin installed one of his own men to head the space agency. The man failed. There was a failure of the moon program. Okay, and then basically nothing happened. That's just the launches of rockets that fell basically to zero. I think from hundreds in the past to like 7 in 2024. But anyway, he was fired recently, and this new guy was installed, and it went completely unnoticed. And I understand why, because there's nothing can be showed to Russian people as achievement inside the space agency. It's just a sorrow. It's a very sad sight. So this old head was replaced with a new one in not secrecy, okay? There's news about that, but very little news, downplayed by the propaganda, and Russians basically missed it. So, and then the first news from this new head, Bakanov, historic news. He made the deal with the Americans. Donald Trump would love that. So Bakanov made a deal with Sean Duffy. He managed to extend the operation of the International Space Station until 2028. Great achievement of Russian democracy, diplomacy, space diplomacy, Roscosmos diplomacy. Me being me, I can't leave this fact like this, and I want to tell you something. I think it's worth noting that Roscosmos proposed to extend the service life of the International Space Station until 2028 back in 2023. And NASA later decided that the International Space Station would be used until 2030. But it doesn't matter. If Bakanov needs to show that he actually has done something, he claims it's his historic victory. Russian space rockets are not launching any longer, so he needs something. So he kind of takes an old file, dusts it a little bit, and says, look, this is what I've done. I've done this. We extend now. We beat them Americans. It's the clown of a cosmic scale. But you know what? Surprisingly, Russian people buy it. They don't ask questions and they are told what to do. Perhaps they're more concerned about, eating right and having this digital detox. Now, you all remember former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, don't you? I mean, who cannot remember the guy? When he was the president, he was excellent. He was the best Russian president. No sarcasm here, okay? He was good. As the president, he did so much good for Russian society, for Russian people, for Russian businessmen. Basically, to summarize his presidency, he contained the KGB a lot and took a lot of powers from the KGB, and he gave more freedom to businesses, right? Dmitry Medvedev was good, but now it's a different person. Something has happened. He's changed, okay? I don't know, perhaps it's, he's not Dmitry Medvedev, he's been replaced by the element, I don't know, but he's acting completely different. Well, this week, Dmitry Medvedev, please forgive me. I'm just trying to stay serious here. Dmitry Medvedev called 70-year-old American Senator Lindsey Graham grandpa, trying to personally insult him for pursuing economic sanctions against Russia. Somehow, he is not calling the Speaker of the Upper Chamber of Russian Parliament, Valentina Matvienko, who is 76-year-old woman, he is not calling her granny. And Russian President Vladimir Putin is almost 73, but Medvedev isn't calling him grandpa. But he's calling Lindsey Graham grandpa because, he's 70. What's good for the goose is good for the geezer, gander, right? No, not in Russia. Not in Russia. In other countries, in the country where you are right now, yes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but not in Russia. In Russia, Lindsey Graham is a grandpa and Valentina Matvienko, young girl. Now, speaking of the devil, Valentina Matvienko, her son has been living in a private luxury villa in Italy for several years, according to the local media. Before personal sanctions got imposed against his mother, all the assets that the family mother owned, they were transferred to San Marino. According to L'inchiesta, Sergei Matvienko, the son of Valentina Matvienko, permanently resides in a villa in the Italian city of Pesaro with his wife Julia. There was an investigation done by the local reporters, and the results, Matvienko bought the villa in 2009 when she was still the governor of St. Petersburg at the moment. And then she registered it with the Italian Dominanta Foundation, which doesn't conduct any activities. Now, we all knew that all Russians are created equal in Russia, but some Russians in Russia are more equal than others. But you know what? It turns out that the same stands for Italy. All Russians in Italy are created equal. Only some Russians are more equal than others in Italy. Some Russians, just like myself, they're not even taken at the embassy because, I stand against the war. And some Russians who are family members of the war criminals, they're welcomed with arms wide open. Nice. Speaking of former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, again, and I'll remind you, once upon a time, Dmitry Medvedev and Barack Obama ate hamburgers together at McDonald's. Well, I don't think this particular scene is from McDonald's, but then they did. And Medvedev visited the United States of America, and Obama, being like a fairly simple guy, would just take him to a local hamburger joint where they ate hamburgers. Well, I told you, Medvedev used to be a good guy, but now he is a very odd person. He's just totally changed. Let me remind you of an interesting development that happened in the last week. Dmitry Medvedev threatened the USA with a nuclear strike. Well, he's done that many times before. He did it again. Only this time, his threat wasn't left unnoticed. Donald Trump responded. He ordered 2 nuclear submarines, strike submarines, to move closer to Russia, to get in positions. Makes sense. Dmitry Medvedev is not just a former president. He is one of the top rank officials right now. He is the deputy head of Russia's Security Council. So Donald Trump took a threat from him seriously, and he responded. And he also made a tweet. Former failed president of Russia, Medvedev, needs to watch his words, he said, he wrote. He is entering very dangerous territory. In general, I agree with Donald Trump here, but I would rephrase a little bit. I would say this. Medvedev needs to drink less. And Trump ordered the submarines to move to Russia. And Medvedev instantly shut up. He's not speaking any longer on his X account. And you know what? This move by America, well, by Donald Trump, I don't know, whatever, it's respected. All of a sudden, America flexed the muscle in one of the rare occasions, and Russians, well, the rulers of Russia understood it very well and very quickly. And there's respect because they understand might, strength, and power. Anyway, moving to the next piece of news, it comes from Roskomnadzor, Russia's internet watchdog, a government agency that supervises blocking of internet. Roskomnadzor has blocked the speed test connection speed and quality measurement service due to identified security threats to the Russian internet. Internet speed, well, I personally have used speed test. It's a very, very widespread app and service. All you have to do is go to speedtest.com. It's not advertising, it's just, I've used it all my life. And you hit a button that shows how fast your internet is, right? I've been having troubles lately here with my internet, not like they're having in Russia, but still. And I used speed test to actually measure the speed and quality of my internet. Now, for Russians, it's not an option anymore because it's banned. Internet speed? Haven't you heard Nizhny Novgorod's governor? Internet detox. Do not use internet. Detox, digital detox. This is a wellness procedure. Care for your health. You don't need internet. No internet, therefore you don't need speed testing service. What for? Russians, you should know how the authorities take care of your safety, but you shouldn't know the speed of their care. And also, Russians will have limited choice of films and TV series. Vladimir Putin just signed a law that bans any films or TV series, TV programs really, that discredit traditional values. Such films and TV series will be blocked in all Russian media outlets on internet, will not be shown on TV, and banned in general in Russia. And what would such values would be? Why would movies get banned? What for? I mean, that's the first question I asked. And what do you think? Just this question comes to mind, right? What the movies will be banned for? The thing is, no one knows. The law doesn't define what is value discrediting, discrediting of values. Hypothetical situation, a director, a producer, they make a movie and they come to Roskomnadzor, whatever, whoever's going to be banning, and they look at the movie, they watch it, and they go, oh, no, it's banned. But why? Why? What have we done wrong? What value we discredited? We're not obliged to tell you. It's banned. It breaks the law. I swear, Russian state is learning from Google, because Google is doing the same thing for me. In just 6 days, it'll be 1 year anniversary since Google demonetized me. It sent me a message that it was demonetized me because I was Russian, right? And I said, okay, I agree, and that's understood. But then I created another AdSense account that I registered in the United States of America. Clean, transparent, safe as you can go. And then Google denied to remonetize my account to this new AdSense account, my YouTube channel. And when I asked Google why, they said, you violated our policy. Which one? We're not obliged to tell you. Just know that you violated one of the policies. Now, if you watch my channel, and most of you watch regularly, then you hear every single word I speak on this channel. What have I violated? I never show violence here. If I have some violent video, I upload it on Telegram uncensored, okay? Because I might violate YouTube's policy, right? I don't do it. I just speak. I share the news, I share my opinions, and I share my take on things in Russia. That violates some kind of values of Google, okay? So now Google equals Russian government. The government does that to the movies. Google does that to the creators. It's done it to me. So what do you know, right? Well, moving on to another piece of good news. Oh, what a day of good news that is. Anna Mishonova, children's ombudswoman of Russia, proposed, well, that's a person that the government nominates to watch the rights of children in Russia. Okay, so that's the government's woman watching over children. So she proposed fining Russians for the energy of the devil. The energy of the devil. No, I know, it's funny. What is this bad energy of the devil? What do you think? Just take a wild guess. All right, I'm not gonna keep you waiting here, right? That's just interesting. It's been interesting to know your opinion. Write me down in the comments, what was the first thought you had in your mind when you heard the energy of the devil? Obscenity. Yeah, swear words. Mishonova also called to film acts of violation of this law, rule, regulation. There's no law, but this is just proposing to make this law to fine for the energy of the devil. All right? So she proposes that adults and children will be taking cameras, telephones, and film violations, and to hand such evidence to the security forces, the federal police, the KGB, and Russian state will fine those for using the energy of the devil. Will Russia become better? Well, I don't know, but the state will definitely have more control and more money because it'll have more fines to collect. Perhaps I'm a little slow, okay, but please explain me. Russia is waging the war in Ukraine. Every single day, it launches hundreds of missiles, drones, it shells Ukrainian villages, towns, cities. It kills people there. How is this called? Liberation? The energy of God? And then when someone in Russia would say a swear word, then I would say that's the energy of the devil. I'm confused, okay? Let me know down below in the comments what you think about that. I'm sharing what I have inside. It's a mix of anger, disbelief, and shock. Okay, that's my cocktail of feelings that this news brings inside of me, stirs inside of me. What do you think? Let's move to gosh, what is this today? All right, you know what this is? Take a wild guess. Yeah, it looks like a campfire, right? Well, that's basically what it is. This is a Soviet-style summer camp for adults. It'll be opened in Belokalitrinsky district of Rostov province, not too far from the place where I grew up. And I am not making this up. You can go and to the source. It's a Telegram channel called We Are Rostov. That's where I got this information from. It's in the news. Okay? Right now, as you see, there's a person filming. It's like an interview of the organizers of this summer camp. It will be a pioneer camp. Pioneer. You know what the pioneer organization is like? The young communists of Soviet Union. And it was an honor given to the children of the USSR, only it was a mandatory honor. You kind of like had to join the pioneer organization. It was the first step of indoctrination. The next step was Komsomol, the youth of communism, communist party, and then of course there was communist. So there's 3 stages. So pioneer camp for adults. Pioneer camp. So the pioneer camp would come just like the pioneer camps from my childhood with counselors, with mountain climbing, with morning exercises, with linейки, the formations, mandatory formations every morning, with discotheques at night, with hiking, with bonfires. It is planned to organize a trial tour this September, just in a few weeks. And this is what they're making right now. You see that building out back, white walls? That's a typical pioneer camp, and that's where we lived. I was twice in a camp like that. I liked it. I liked it for one simple reason. Because I was a kid, away from my parents, in the 4th grade and the 6th grade. I was among kids just like me. It was freedom. Well, not counselors were always on our butts, but freedom from parents, freedom away from home. And I still remember very warmly that time. But we despised all those things, the counselors, the morning exercises, living like in prison, schedule formations, mandatory formations every morning, etc. We didn't like that, okay? We liked freedom. We liked, and now looking back, I was young. I really have warm feelings. So what these people are trying to do, they try to play on people's warm feelings like I have from their childhood. Only they replace values. No one can bring me my youth back. I cannot all of a sudden go back and turn into, myself in the 4th grade. And they take those good memories and try to plant it in today's reality for these adults. So they organize a trial tour in September. The project is being implemented in several stages. Basically, right now, probably just like any business project, it's a first stage, experimental stage. So they are planning a few stages until 2028. According to the preliminary estimates, the total cost of this project would be 120 million rubles, or $1,500,000. There will be some investors, and my bet is that they're going to take some of state financing, and the money they're gonna take, they're gonna steal most of it. Okay, that's why these people are organizing this camp, and they're pretending that they're going back to the Soviet values, and all these things. So, 20 million rubles or $250,000 have already been spent. The organizers are saying we are creating the atmosphere campsite with appropriate retrofitting. We are gradually acquiring various rarities of those times, for example, gramophone and vinyl records, things like that. So this camp is expected to employ 45, 50 people. And the tourists will come, the adult tourists. They expect the tourist flow to begin next May. Something tells me that there will be state financing or partial financing, and some companies of most likely the military-industrial complex, they will make it obligatory for some of their employees to go and attend such camp. Crazy. It's crazy news. It's everything that we despised about our old country, about living in the USSR. They're bringing back. What is really crazy is that people are buying it and some people are celebrating. I mean, anyone who is 49 years old, like I am, anyone, I guarantee you, looking back, they're not gonna go to a camp like that. Hell no. Anyway, crazy news. Now, speaking of the new normal in Russia, on the night of August 3rd, and I just took one night, it's a regular night, no more, no less, other than other nights. Russian air defense forces destroyed and intercepted 93 Ukrainian drones, the reports say. The Russian Ministry of Defense, or Offense, reported that, according to the ministry, 60 drones were destroyed over the Black Sea, 18 drones over the Voronezh province, and 7 over Belgorod, 3 over Bryansk, 2 over Kursk, and 1 over Nizhny Novgorod province in Krasnodar territory. Well, all those drones were shot down and missile air defense worked perfectly. Well, what happened in Sochi then? Check this out. This is near Sochi. A fuel tank caught on fire at an oil depot in Adler district, said the mayor of Sochi. Check this out again. I mean, those drones and missiles were shot down, right? Just a small fire. Don't worry about it. That's what they say to Russians. But it's kind of for everyone to see. It's by a major highway, and everyone films. I guess the next step is they go after people who film and share. Okay, that's how it works. In addition, they say that it's the debris that fell from the skies when the drones or missiles were destroyed. They set everything on fire. So also this fire and debris set nearby buildings on fire. They're just small debris, small fires, no big deal. It's new normal in Russia. I took August 3rd just to show you that it happens every night now. And the thing is, before it was a big deal. It was all over the news. Oh, Ukrainian drones flew in and executed a strike. Now no one pays attention. It's become a mundane event. In February of 24, on February 24, 2022, Vladimir Putin came out and publicly said, and it's on record, he said, "I made a decision to attack Ukraine, to make Russia safer, to denazify, demilitarize Ukraine. Now, since Ukraine is attacked, Russians will feel so much safer, and then this action will beefen up the security." Okay, August 3rd, 2025. And this is just official information. 93 drones, fires all over Russia. That's how new normal. This is how Putin's safety and stability looks like. Take a good look again. That's Sochi. It's right in the city. Now, before moving to the next news, I would like to take this opportunity and thank you. This is a mid-roll, about half of the news are done. Usually, YouTubers put advertising here, messages from sponsors. Well, I also do that. Well, the thing is, I am the sponsor of this message, myself, Konstantin. I don't have any other sponsors. And let me tell you something. I am showing my gratitude and thanking you for your support, for watching this video and other videos, for liking, for subscribing, for sending me messages, praying along with me, for sending me love. Thank you so very much for being valuable part of Inside Russia community. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. I'm demonetized, but sometimes I receive support via PayPal and buymeacoffee.com. Thank you so very much. And also, I have a Patreon account. I provide 9 news per day for those who subscribe and a daily snippet. In other words, I try to share more information on a daily basis for the patrons. That's my way of saying thank you for your support. Thank you, friends. Demonetized, in a few days, it's going to be 1 year since my demonetization of Inside Russia. Demonetized but not broken. I give you my word. I will continue doing my work. Thank you so very much. Now, the next piece of news comes from Murmansk province, where the officials are calling citizens for reporting, to report to Roskomnadzor, Internet's watchdog and media watchdog. The authorities are urging Russians to write denunciation letters to the secret police and the federal police if they see any kind of disrespect for the state on the internet. The Ministry of Regional Security of Murmansk province called the residents to write denunciations in order to, I quote, make the online environment safer. Of course, everything that is being done in Russia is done for safety. Russia attacked Ukraine just for own safety, okay? And Russians write denunciation letters to increase online environments, to make the online environment safer. The officials recalled that the key signs of illegal content, in their opinion, there are insults to people, disrespect for society and the state, calls for mass riots and participation in uncoordinated, unapproved public events. When such content is found on the internet, they urge Russians, concerned citizens really, to denounce to Roskomnadzor and to the authorities. One of the worst pages of Russian history was when Russians massively denounced their neighbors, their friends, their family members in the 30s of the 20th century. That era is called the Big Terror. Millions of Russians were just executed. And the reason for executions were denunciation letters. Anonymous letters from concerned citizens. I am the concerned citizen of Soviet Union, informing the authorities that my neighbor works for Japanese intelligence or German intelligence or American intelligence. When he gets out of his apartment every morning, he looks very suspicious and he acts nervously. He must be a spy. That was enough to execute person, to take his life, okay? And that's what they call him to do again. Only when I was growing up and the truth came to light, we were ashamed of our past. To denounce anyone was like the worst thing you could do in your life, the most immoral thing. And now, I guess, things have changed. Back to the USSR, to its worst part. Now, friends, I hope you are liking this message. If you are, then I am asking you to hit the like button. It helps me to spread this message to show to more people on YouTube. Thank you so very much. Thank you. I see the likes are going up now. I appreciate that. 1491 so far. And 3,600 people watching. Thank you. The next piece of news comes from Nalchik. It's a city in the North Caucasus region, not too far from Georgia, from Dagestan, from Ossetia, not Ossetia, Azerbaijan, I'm sorry. Anyway, in that area. Krasnodarsky Krai, not too far, Stavropolsky Krai. Anyway, it's southeast of Russia. At least 10 people were hurt in today's accident. Funicular, a cable car broke in Nalchik and fell down with people in it. You see the cable right there. So I'll show you again. So people are still there, stuck, and it's obviously non-operational because the cable snapped. And we see ambulances, and that's a tragedy, obviously. The chairs fell down with people in them. Several people are still stuck up in the air and are waiting to be helped, to be rescued. The exact number of injured is still being clarified. As I said, it happened just a few hours ago, and then people probably still stuck in the air. There's still no information about the dead. I have hard time believing there are no dead, but I'll keep my eyes open. It's just I picked this particular news for today's report for one simple reason. I have said many times that Russians start paying the war bill. They are the ones who will pick up the bill in fullest at the end. Russian people. And by paying the war bill, I don't just mean, spending money. I don't mean becoming poorer. I don't mean being able to afford less. I don't mean to pay extra taxes to rebuild Ukraine and basically living in a failed economy. That too, but paying the bill, the war bill, picking up the war bill is much more than that. And one of the faces of this war bill, you're just seeing it. Not just living standard, but safety and security. It's the elevators inside buildings falling down. It's people getting caught from heat in the wintertime and freezing. It's not having cold or hot water. It's not having gas. It's having bad roads that cause accidents. It's having cable cars fall down, cables snapping from lack of maintenance. Everything happens due to the lack of maintenance. And why there's lack of maintenance these days? Plain and simple, is not enough money. Because they take every single ruble possible, send it to the war, to continue this criminal war with Ukraine. So this is one of the faces of the war bill that Russians are paying. This is how it looks like. The next piece of Russian news comes from Poland today. The Polish media of Onet, I hope I pronounced it right, reported that the United States proposed to Putin on Ukraine. According to the reporters, the American proposal, which Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff handed over to Putin in the Kremlin 2 days ago, includes a ceasefire, not a peace agreement, de facto recognition of Russia's territorial acquisitions by postponing the resolution of this issue for either 49 or 99 years, the lifting of most of the sanctions imposed against Russia, and, in the long term, the assumption of energy cooperation, that is, the importing of Russian gas and oil. I hesitate to comment on this news. I don't know whether it's true or not. It's just rumors as far as I'm concerned. It hasn't been confirmed. But I tend to believe, that's my personal decision, okay? If it is true, then it's complete capitulation of Ukraine and making Putin absolute victor. That would be an insanity. And speaking of Trump's special envoy, Witkoff, he visited the Kremlin, and well, I understand that he brings something from Trump to Putin. I understand that they meet. I understand that there is a need to discuss. That all is common sense. But there are some things about his visit I don't understand. I refuse to understand. For example, he ate at the Kremlin. How do I know? Russian propaganda spread that like wildfire. Witkoff ate cheburek, meat pie, and he loved it. And he complimented to the chef, and he liked it so much, and this is what kind of dish he ate, and there was quite a few reports from that place in the Kremlin he ate, okay? It's too bad they didn't take pictures of the actual meat pie he ate, okay? He ate at the Kremlin. Then, after the meeting with Putin, he had a good time in Moscow again. In his last visit, he walked on Arbat Street surrounded by Russian envoy to America and some other war criminals, and he was having a good time. It was those people were walking around with their wives, and Witkoff came, and it looked like a friendly get-together, you know. And he had a good time this time again. He walked around the Kremlin with a song playing with the words tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock is ticking, and it's right here. You hear? Tick-tock, tick-tock. She said clock is ticking, tick-tock. And I hope I don't get hit by copyright. But anyway, that's Dmitry, Russian envoy to America on Ukraine. That's Witkoff, left of him. And that's the security guys, you know, you see the Praetorians. This is Moscow. Right next to the Kremlin. So he worked around Zaryadye Park. It's a park right next to Kremlin. They had a nice walk. Well, looked like he was having a good time. I don't understand what's going on. And it's not like the Americans, the officials, don't know how to conduct themselves in Russia. I'll just give you an example. William Burns, the CIA director, visited Moscow in late 2021. He flew in, he met with Putin in the Kremlin, and he flew out. He didn't have a good time in Moscow. He didn't walk around Moscow. He didn't meet anyone except for the people he was supposed to meet. He didn't eat in Moscow. In and out. He had a mission he fulfilled. He delivered a message and he was out. No meals, no walks. Does anyone in the U.S. Embassy, can anyone in the U.S. Embassy advise to Witkoff not to eat in Russia, in the Kremlin? What is he doing? It's if they don't have common sense, they must have professional etiquette, professional procedures, the protocol. You cannot eat at Lion's Den. If there's no one in the embassy of the United States in Moscow to tell Witkoff not to do that, perhaps the CIA, they know. The head Burns went there. He knows how to conduct perfectly well. How come I am sitting here far away and I'm just a regular guy? I'm looking at it and I'm amazed. How come the big shots in the USA cannot tell Witkoff how to conduct himself in the right manner? Do you think what that song with the words tick-tock, tick-tock, clock is ticking mean? Do you think it was a coincidence? Nothing about that walk around was a coincidence, let me tell you. They knew that they filmed and spread it all over the world. The footage was, it can be seen in the USA, it can be seen in Uzbekistan, they show it in the Prime TV here, and then all you hear is tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock is ticking. And Witkoff was in Moscow 2 days before the end of the ultimatum that Donald Trump gave to Putin, okay? And then Russians simply insult Donald Trump through Witkoff. They insult America, and they just play a song, tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock is ticking, do your worst. It is an act of humiliation of America by Russia. Am I the only one seeing that? Please tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding the situation, but to me, it's crystal clear. And you know what? I like America. I don't want it to be humiliated by Russia. But why the heck it's happening? The next piece of news comes from Russian church. And Russian church has been quite a newsmaker recently, Take candles, go pray, and don't demand money. On the anniversary of the invasion of the armed forces of Ukraine into Russia, into Kursk territory, the Kursk residents, in Russia they're called Kuryani, the Kuryans, who lost their homes, conceived a protest action against the inaction of the officials. They are being dissuaded with help of the Russian Orthodox Church. The residents of Sudzha and Glushkovsky district, and these areas were under occupation for so many months, and they were in a war zone. They discussed holding a protest action on August 6th, the first anniversary of the invasion. Immediately, pressure began mounting on those people. The residents of Sudzha decided to assemble a symbolic displaced person's house in the center of Kursk. That Kursk is the capital, it's a large city. So they decided to put things that would remind them of their lost homes. The campaign was discussed in closed Telegram groups, WhatsApp groups, just the local residents discuss it themselves. Well, the KGB learned immediately, of course. There are secret agents acting as residents everywhere. So the residents of other affected border areas, in particular Glushkovsky area, were also supposed to take part in that action in Kursk. And the idea was to bring, again, these little things from home, toys, keys, photos, put them so everyone can see them, to remind people, look, we lost our homes due to the Russian army not able to protect us. And we want assistance from the Russian state. They promised, but they failed to deliver. We want to attract everyone's attention. Is this illegal? Well, the purpose of the action was to, basically to draw attention. Okay, so what's wrong with that again? Everything is wrong. Shortly after discussion of the actions, Archpriest Yevgeny Shestopalov, the head of the Holy Trinity Church of Sudzha, recorded a video in which he condemned the idea of gathering in a rally. And this is the guy. He says, the anniversary, instead of getting together and trying to protest, instead of, it's not the right time to protest. Not the reason to remind of yourself. Who are we? The entire Russia is fighting. I don't understand, he says. Go to a square, protest, demand something. On the 6th of August, you must go to church, take candles, and pray about your neighbors who died, about the soldiers who were defending you, and of the soldiers who were killed. Okay? So instead of going and reminding of themselves, reminding of the promises that the state made for those people, reminding of unfulfilled promises, the church crushes them and blames them for having such thoughts and says, instead, you should stay quiet. You shouldn't think of yourself. You shouldn't remind of yourself. Just take candles and go pray. This priest is an interesting character. Okay? He was a very active member of protesting some time ago, about 7 months ago. Shestopalov criticized the regional authorities and blamed for the failed evacuation that happened. There was failed evacuation. He was very loud. He was a local priest. However, he personally met with Vladimir Putin in the spring of 2025, and he changed his rhetoric completely. And he is working for the government now. The protest on the August of 6th to remind the world that those displaced ones still exist and they're still waiting for the support, the protest never took place. Thanks to Russian Church also. Okay, the news, like I've been telling you today, there will be many more news like that, and something is happening in Russia, something very unusual. Usually July and August are very quiet months, but this July, this August, there are tremors, there are so many news. If you want to keep up with other breaking news from Russia, Consider becoming patron of Inside Russia, because every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important with my commentaries and analysis. I'll keep you informed on everything you wanted to know about Russia and from Russia, but didn't know where to ask. Become patron at patreon.com, and I'm going to place the link down below so you can go and check it out. Get the access to the news that matter, that you will not find in any mainstream media. The next news is amusing. Yeah, really. Check this out. Vladimir Putin recently announced that Russia started serial production, mass production of Oreshnik ballistic missile that Vladimir Putin used on Ukraine in November of last year. Well, we all know that Putin is 72 years old, and after all, he's excused. Well, because so he made this news 1st of August that Russia started mass production of Oreshnik. But the thing is, he made the exact same news. Well, he made that speech on the 28th of November of last year. So on 1st of August, he repeated. Now, which message we should believe? The one back in November or the one on 1st of August? Okay, which one is true? Was mass production of Oreshnik started there, or it was started just a couple days ago? I know Putin is 72 years old, but he has an army of speechwriters, aides. Where are they looking at? Why do they allow such mistakes? Okay, and if they don't start doing their job, Putin can lodge production of Oreshnik, couple more times until the end of this year. So I find this news pretty funny. The next news comes from Chelyabinsk. Chelyabinsk is a region in the east of Russia. Personal bank accounts worth of almost 4 billion rubles or $50 million were frozen, and the funds were seized from Alexei Kolbasin, the former head of the investigative committee for the Chelyabinsk province. So you understand, that's one of the top Siloviki people. He heads government agency that is among top 3 the most powerful ones, along with the KGB and the federal police and the state prosecutors. Now, $50 million were found in his personal bank account, frozen and seized. The information appeared in a local court database, so it's 100% true. And other suspects, he was arrested. Other suspects arrested for the same crime, and that crime is corruption, obviously. Yuri Shuvalov, the deputy head of Ural Department of Rostechnadzor, government's watchdog for safety of buildings, etc., safety of production. Vyacheslav Potapov, former deputy head of the Ural Interregional Department of Rosprirodnadzor, the watchdog that watches the safety of the nature. Konstantin Strukov, the founder of Yuzh Ural Zolota, a big businessman. All of them are defendants in the lawsuit filed by the Prosecutor General's Office of the Russian Federation. They respond in solidarity, and very interesting how the head of the investigative committee, official with salary of approximately $40,000 per year after taxes, how could he accumulate $50 million in his bank account? What do you think? Well, I can tell you this. This is how Putin's system works. You get power and you serve to your master. In return, you are allowed to use that power to enrich yourself in any way you find necessary. Imagine state prosecutors, they have so much power to open and close criminal investigations, to put people to prison or release them from prison, So imagine how that power is used. So a regional official of, not such high caliber, talking about the entire Russia, is openly having $50 million is his account with an official salary of $40,000 or, 5 million rubles, something like that. Not even, so you understand. The next piece of news is, judge for yourself. For the poster says no war, the court sentenced Elena Abramova from St. Petersburg to 2 years in a penal colony. She stood with a poster for only 2 minutes in the center of St. Petersburg, holding it like this. It said no war. 2 minutes. And she was detained, charged with a crime, sentenced to 2 years. That's how much 2 years of protest in Russia cost this day. 2 years. 2 minutes, 2 years. The next news is very significant. Actually, I was thinking of making a separate live stream about that. Pay very close attention. Russians will be able to use delivery services, marketplaces, and taxis during internet outages, according to the Ministry of Digitization. This is a ministry that takes care of the digital services the government uses. The agency and telecom companies have developed and agreed on a technical scheme that will allow access to the white list of basic services companies during the mobile internet outages. Basically, they have developed a list of companies, state-owned companies, taxi services and different access to databases and such. And even when you don't have internet, you don't have access to internet, somehow they provide you access to these companies from the whitelist. Now, it's convenient, isn't it? This is how they boil the frog. Again, very, very important. Folks, I want you to take a good look and remember that. Now, they're saying, we shut off internet for your own safety to disorient drones. And drones still fly. Drones still hit targets, but no one cares about that. At least that's the excuse they give. And later, now, they develop this list of few companies, and even when they shut the internet down, you can access to those companies. And after a while, they're going to say, you know what? We're going to shut down internet permanently, but for convenience of people, we're going to leave these companies. You still can access them. And if you have run a business and you want to be in that list, you have to apply to the government. You have to meet certain requirements. For example, you must employ a KGB agent, officer, to look after your digital infrastructure, things like that, So the government has complete control over your company. Then you are in the white list. And if not, then, you don't have internet presence, basically. This is huge. It's one of the things to notice in Russia. This is how they execute stepping stone strategy. And the next news is also very important. In 2025, the security forces detained and charged almost 100 high-ranked officials on suspicion of corruption. This is a record number of the detained officials for the last 10 years. There's a purge of high-ranking officials in Russia going on. They've been arrested en masse in front of the full country. Almost third, 28% of criminal cases are handled by the secret police KGB. The number of top-level federal officials arrested, from the ministers to heads of departments and their deputies, exceeded pre-war figures, and there have been deaths so far. Experts attribute the increase in criminal cases to the desire of law enforcement officers to increase performance and strengthen the control over civil servants. Basically, to survive, autocracy needs to be feared, and that's what they're doing right now. They're planting fear in the heads of every single government official. Carrots are gone. Now sticks, and we're seeing it right now. It is a very quiet process for most Russians. They're not paying attention, but this is a very loud process to those few who are target audience of Siloviki arresting the officials. And the audience, of course, the civil servants, the officials. And now they, instead of being rewarded, the reward is not being punished. I like that. Spiders in the jar are fighting for their lives now, not for the remaining food, now for their lives. They start eating each other. There have been deaths, at least 2. Before moving to the last news, it's been a very large, very long report today. As I'm telling you, there's so many news. Before moving to the last news, I'd like to ask you a favor. As usual, please let me know 3 news that you like the most, perhaps something you didn't like. Select 3 news, write me in the comments what you liked absolute most. That way I select news for the upcoming live streams, Friday reports better. Thank you so very much. And if you haven't liked this message, please do so. It's a very good time. The last news is I named this live stream India Bans Russian Oil. Now, this is huge. This is huge, super important. Donald Trump has actually started walking the walk, at least, with India. He gave Russia an ultimatum. Quite some time ago, he said that I give Russia 50 days to end the war in Ukraine. Or, usually it's or else, but you're going to regret it. Then Russia, in return, bombed Ukraine fiercely, and Donald Trump got mad. So he said, you know what, no more 50 days, 10, 12 days. And then he warned the Indians to stop buying Russian oil. And if continued to do so, he would slap them with 25% tariffs. Now, that happened after the Europeans created the 18th package of the sanctions. And inside that package, there was a ban of sanctions against one of 4 largest oil refineries in India, partially owned by Russian company Rosneft, Igor Sechin, Putin's close friend, and that refinery has been helping Russians to circumvent the sanctions. Basically, they buy Russian oil, they refine and sell as Indian products, not Russian, for example, Russian gasoline or diesel, not Russian, but Indian, and they sell it to Europe. So it's Russian oil, Russian refined products, make it to Europe. So the Europeans said, you know what, that's enough, we're not going to do that. And the Indians stopped buying Russian oil. How do I know? The tankers. They're not taking any tankers, at least last week, around Thursday, Wednesday, there were quite a few Russian tankers, and the Indians were not accepting them. Now, Donald Trump warned that he would slap 25% tariff. That was the second step of the pressure applied on India. And it looks like what they started doing, they started looking for replacement of Russian oil. International politics is a very a thing very not straightforward, okay? And what Indians did on the facade, they started making statements that, oh, we're not afraid of the sanctions, okay? If we decide to buy Russian oil, we'll continue to buy Russian oil, So in reality, in last Friday, they sent a letter to most large oil refineries in India, strongly recommending start looking for a replacement of Russian oil. And Russian tankers are still not accepted in India. And Donald Trump did slap 25% tariff just a couple of days ago on India, the entire country, for buying Russian oil. And then the Indians counteracted with saying, you know what, we're not afraid, and the United States is not being fair. That's the facade, okay? That's just the blah, blah talk. The walk is different. Indians right now are actively looking for a replacement for Russian oil. And even if they continue somehow, some people say, okay, the Indians will find a way to circumvent the tariffs, to cheat the Europeans and the Americans. That is possible. But even in that case, the risks for the Indians go up significantly. It means that the reward must be much higher. It means that they will get bigger discounts from Russian suppliers, in particular from Rosneft. Okay, it means that Russians will be selling oil for less, therefore less money will go to Russia to finance the war. Even if Indians stop buying Russian oil completely, that's 1.5 million barrels per day. That is a huge blow. I would say this is a finishing off of Russian economy, okay, if it really happens. But even if it doesn't happen completely, still, Russia is hit by the actions of the Europeans and the actions of the Americans. This is happening, and it's worsening, okay? I forecast that we will see the effect from these actions that are happening right now in about 10 to 12 weeks, because there's a certain lag in the process of oil exporting, refining, and selling, okay? They're still refining the remains of oil imported before. So then they will need some time to transfer money for the oil already sold, for the, not oil, but gasoline, refined oil products already sold. So it's going to take some time, but it will come down Russian economy. Mark my words on that. Late September, October. We'll see. This could be a game changer. Again, if Indians give up buying Russian oil, definitely will be a game changer. And then we will look for the events inside Russian economy, inside Russian state. Possibly mobilization, possibly very harsh matters, fiscal matters from Russian government towards the Russian companies and Russian people. Even if Indians continue buying oil, then still we will see the effects. Thank you very much for being with me today. Please come back tomorrow. There will be a private live stream for patrons only. I call it Virtual Pub. This is a place where we hang out. Very private conversations, very slow paced, very pleasant. Not too many members, up to 50. And I answer all the questions, and we just hang out as if we were in a pub with friends. And then there will be a video either on Sunday or on Saturday, so on one of those days. I usually take Sundays off, but since I missed quite a few days last week, I would like to make it up to you. Thank you so very much. I'll see you soon. Carthago delenda est.